Original research can transform your B2B content marketing efforts, from generating unique insights to creating a wealth of repurposable content. Listen on to discover why original research is the secret weapon that can position your brand as an industry authority and drive meaningful engagement across your entire marketing funnel. You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximize your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Welcome to the Content 10x podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, and I'm delighted that you've joined me for this episode. The Content 10x podcast is all about content marketing, and there's a big focus on getting the most from your content, getting the maximum ROI with creative and strategic content repurposing. That's what we're all about on the show. In this episode, we turn our attention to original research and reports. So listen on to hear about the value of original research in B2B marketing, including what we mean by original research and some direct examples from B2B marketing experts. Also, content creation and repurposing opportunities that original research can generate from different purposes and stages of your marketing funnel, and the strategic benefits of proprietary research, from demand gen to pipeline growth and brand awareness. But before I get to the main content, just to mention, if you want content repurposing tips and guidance, industry updates, inspiring stories and exclusive news delivered straight to your inbox every other week, then join thousands of business owners, marketers and creators and become a Content 10x insider. Head to content10x.com/newsletter. Back to the main topic. So if you've been following along, you'll know that we've just run a 6-weekly episode mini-series all about expert interviews. I was delighted to be joined by our very own Hayley Evans, who co-hosted the series with me. Now, we covered the what, the why, the who, the how of interviewing experts within your organization to power your entire content strategy. Do go check those episodes out, episodes 324 to 329. We also have a really epic blog post called The Ultimate Guide to Planning, Recording and Repurposing Expert Interviews to fuel your entire content strategy. The link will be in the show notes, or head to content10x.com/324 right now. The idea for the series came about after I'd recorded episode 323. Called How to Create Content That AI Can't Create. This is a really interesting topic because AI-generated content is everywhere, from blog posts to social media posts to graphics, videos, you name it. And this comes with a downside, which is a flood of low-quality, undifferentiated, commoditized content clogging up our feeds and search results. I made the point in that episode that we shouldn't be competing against this AI content. We should rise above it. If AI can create it, we need to raise our standards. And I also spoke about this with our wonderful guest, Andy Crestodina, in episode 322. We see AI content get churned out at pace, but it's often generic, predictable, and it lacks depth and nuance that human-created content brings to the table. So instead, we should focus on quality, not quantity, and share new ideas, say things that haven't been said before. There are plenty of examples of this type of content. Our series on expert interviews was a perfect example of completely unique human-led thought leadership content. Other examples of this type of content that AI simply can't create very well include detailed how-to guides, live streams, events, collaborative content, webinars, of which we're soon going to do a whole series on. And there's also original research and reports, which is what I want to talk about in today's episode. Original research is one of the most valuable types of content that you can create in B2B marketing. Now, it's fairly obvious to say, given it's in the title, original, but this is going to be, by its very nature, unique, and it's saying something new that's not something that AI is going to create, because you're creating something proprietary and something that people can trust. It's your research and you believe in what you're talking about. Now, we've seen some crazy examples of where AI will blatantly make things up, and you don't want that. It fabricates facts, it hallucinates, but this data-backed research that you can create will build credibility. The great thing about original research is that it can generate lots and lots of new content for different parts of your funnel, gated and ungated content, which I'll come on to in a moment. So first, let's look at what we mean by original research. So you decide on a topic that's interesting to your audience that you're going to study and generate insights, ideas, and findings from. How do you choose the right topics? Well, that's about aligning research with your audience needs, market gaps, or industry trends. So you need to do the work yourself when it comes to choosing the topic. The research is usually in the form of analysing data, interviewing people, conducting surveys, and working through that information. Now, I'm not going to play down how much work goes into original research because it can be quite extensive, but then that's what makes it valuable and trustworthy. And on that, be sure to say where the information and data in your report comes from to build that trust. Now, you might do it all in-house, or you might work with a specialist company who will assist you, for example, by creating and running surveys, gathering data, analysing data. So it's going to require time, resource, and budget. And you need to make sure you embark on your research study with the end in mind to make sure you get the right data. So it's lots of work, but it's well worth it. On our sister podcast, B2B Content Strategists, we talk with leaders in the B2B marketing space. And I want to share with you this clip from Katie Morley, our guest on episode 1 of season 3, talking about a research report in her previous role as Global Head of Content at Content Square. You'll hear just how fantastic they can be.
So what Content Square had was access to the anonymized data of like hundreds of thousands of these global well-known brands around the world, which meant that they had so much interesting data, interesting metrics about how people were interacting with websites, what makes a good website, what makes a poor website, what's causing frustration, what's causing people to bounce. And they began building this huge yearly benchmark report. And the benchmark report was just insights about website experience, mobile devices, user experience, taken from all of this anonymized data. I can't remember how many data points there were, but it was like millions, if not billions of data points. And I think this one is the most memorable one for me because it was just this campaign that kept on giving. It was like juice that would just deliver a content marketing strategy for the entire year. So the first asset was the benchmark report. We did it with this PDF. It was all the benchmark data broken down into different parts of the experience that were most important at the time based on kind of user behavior. But from that, we would then break it down into, okay, so for the retail industry, here are the benchmarks for the retail industry, or for the UK, this is what's happening on UK websites, or in the Asian market, this is kind of what they're doing. And from that, we'd build individual reports. Then we'd do webinars. Then we'd do press releases. Then we'd do event talk tracks, and we'd do social media campaigns with all this data. And I think it was very, very impressive. Like, it drove so many results. It generated so much interest. People were intrigued by it. People would ask the customer success team at Content Square, when is it coming out? When can we expect the next benchmark report? So not only did it generate loads of demand, it was great for driving pipeline, but I think in terms of branding, it was the most perfect example of, okay, we know your industry and we know your competitors and how they're performing better than anyone else. Here's all of this data. It's that kind of really strong, which is often upsettingly quite rare for B2B to have such a strong brand message with an asset that is genuinely useful, that is able to use the data that only they can get to deliver this content marketing asset that just has so much life and legs. And it was a nightmare to deliver. All of that data, crunching it down as a content marketer was so difficult. I think we got to 24 iterations or something of the first benchmark report before we actually went live with it. But it was a fantastic asset that, again, every year you could reiterate, you could improve it, you could add new benchmarks. So you didn't have to reinvent the wheel every single year thinking, what can we do this year to drive demand? And it had built a lot of brand awareness, and people kind of knew to expect that from Content Square. So that was definitely the most memorable, biggest global kind of content campaigns I've worked on.
There you go. You heard from Katie about how they were able to create their report every year. It generated lots of content for them. It positioned them well in their industry. It's really hard to argue that this isn't a great thing to do. And it's really good advice to work out how to become the go-to. So look at past reports, look at your competitor reports, and create something that can be annual so it becomes part of your content strategy. And think about the report a year ahead. What else could you be doing to prepare for it? Like Katie said, it was really hard work though, and they were fortunate to be sitting on the data that went into their reports. But like I said, you can also work with external providers. So I'd now like to share this clip from Shannon Howard, Director of Customer and Content Marketing at Intelum. She was in episode 5 on B2B Content Strategy Season 3, and she shares how they worked with Forrester for their report.
So we commissioned research from Forrester, and this is an update to a report that we commissioned in 2019. And the unique thing about this report is Forrester usually does total economic impact reporting on, like what is the average ROI that customers see from your product or service. And then they do more thought leadership type where they're doing something on the industry. But this report was a blend of total economic impact for the industry. So instead of total economic impact for Intelum, it's total economic impact of the field of customer education. And so commissioned this new research, updated research from Forrester, and then got to work on content around that, webinars, blogs, the actual research report, collaborating with the analysts on that, and then with people to support and promote it. So that was the thing I think that was really fun, was to actually remember, like, going for a walk one night and just LinkedIn messaging a bunch of people in our industry saying, okay, we've got this new research coming out. I think you'll find it interesting. I'd love to send you a copy. Would you be willing to help us promote this? And I don't know, probably 10 of the 15 people I reached out to said yes within 24 hours. That was really fun, and I think that was exciting for me because it was like a rising tide lifts all ships. This data, is helpful for everybody in our industry, every influencer. And so we wanted to be able to get that content into people's hands, and people were really happy to support and promote that.
Great information and example there from Shannon. Notice how much content was created from the research and also how valuable it was that people willingly promoted it. I'd like to point out here where content sits within your marketing funnel as well. So your full research report, which is the largest and most valuable piece of content, the long form that includes everything, that is often gated content, where it's part of your lead generation, and once people provide email addresses, they get your report. And you can keep in touch with them then, if they consent, of course, via email nurture sequences and other follow-ups. And from this high-value gated content, a lot of repurposed content is used for other parts of the funnel, from top of funnel organic and then paid social as well, to middle of funnel blog posts and so on. Your report doesn't have to be gated, that said. You can give it away completely free, no strings attached as well. It's really up to you. I'd just like to also share this great soundbite from Hannah Forson, Senior Demand Generation Manager at Bamboo HR. She was a guest on episode 11 of B2B Content Strategies podcast in season 3. And Hannah shares a story of working with an industry specialist to create reports for them. And then the internal team could run with that and make more content.
My boss at the time had been in the industry for 20 or more years. And she had said, hey, I know that there are these handful of vendors. They have different public sector specialties and audiences. So what we did was we kind of selected 3 or 4 of the ones that were the best fit for us and had them develop a lot of our content. And a lot of it was like pay to play. So we would say, hey, we want to do a research report that's targeting technology teams in government. So let's come up with a research report, and then really led with the direction and the vision that we wanted to go, but then leveraged all of their resources for people who are really good at content to basically get our portfolio going. And then once we kind of had that under us, we were able to work closely with our internal content team to say, okay, this is what we've built with third-party vendors. here's what's performed well, here's what's resonating with the audience. And then they were able to kind of go and make it sustainable so that we weren't always constantly having to like pay from our demand generation budget to get content made.
As you'll hear from these examples, your research report can be highly targeted, extremely useful, and be responsible for a lot of content output. Quite a lot of content has been mentioned already. You can create a white paper, blog posts, podcast episodes, webinars, videos, infographics, social media content. And the great thing is that the content is positioning you as an authority on the topic, sharing unique insights, and as such, you're standing out and rising above generic content and noise. This content is unique. No one is getting it from Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT. When I spoke to Camille Trent, content marketing lead at Aura, on B2B content strategist in episode 13 of our recent season 3, she spoke about how the research and report may be more quantitative, and then you can create more qualitative content by having discussions about the findings. I loved what Camille had to say about this, so take a listen.
From the report standpoint, I like that you can have a theory kind of going into it, look at the data, and then if the data does support what you think that it does and your mission sort of as a company, then you're able to beat that drum, like share the problem like again and again. So I do really like that from more of a, it's not a deep bottom, but I would say like almost a middle funnel type of way, because you have that like just deeper connection to the problem and you have what feels like just proof. But then on the podcasting side, you kind of have a similar type of proof, but from more of a colloquial industry expert point of view, so that they still hold that credibility. This is what I'm seeing, right? Like, this is what's happening. Here's how I'm dealing with it. And so you pair those things together and like all of a sudden you have like this quantitative with this qualitative, and you're able to paint this like very clear picture of, you know, why this is a problem.
As I said, I absolutely loved what Camille said there, and I really do encourage you to go and check out the full episode over on B2B Content Strategist for Camille's episode, and in fact, all of our guests on B2B Content Strategist. I'd also like to point you to a previous episode here on the Content 10X podcast with Michelle Lynn. That was episode 237, called The 4 R's of Repurposing Research. Michelle is the founder of Mantis Research, and she helps marketing teams get credible and meaningful survey data in order to create content. So you should check that conversation. It's at content10x.com/237. In essence, what she talks about. So reusing your data elsewhere, you don't just share the research data in the final report, but share it in all sorts of places, from sales decks to keynotes, which we've already covered. So that's all about repurposing. And then reflecting on findings. This could be in LinkedIn posts, on podcast episodes, in webinars. Look at angles and insights and the so what of it all. Reveal solutions. So looking at the unexpected findings or gaps and think of the new content opportunities related to them. This is the kind of things that could be podcast episodes like Camille talked about. And also reimagine your data, presenting findings from different angles again, but really usefully providing new content opportunities. I also spoke to Daniel Plume on the Content 10X podcast. The episode was called 7 Steps to Transform Your B2B Report. And in that conversation, Daniel spoke about, if you have a research report already, how you then work through it to find the value and create content opportunities. So check that out too. That's episode 237 with Daniel Plume. A key point I want to make here is that original research can create lots of thought leadership and authoritative content. The content that you can create helps you to stand out. And if you know your audience, then your research will be exactly what they want. If you're surveying your audience and perhaps even running some interviews too, get the chance to create content with, not just for your audience as well, which I think is another big win. The content that you can create is often highly repurposable, which we've covered a lot in this episode. And if you need any more convincing, then to round up the episode, have a listen to what Lou Bachersky, previous director of content marketing at Picton Mahoney, had to say when I asked her about her favourite content to repurpose, and the very good point that she makes about being realistic. It's unlikely people may read your whole report, so repurposing really is essential.
I would say probably a long format report, like a research report or a white paper. That, because there's so much in there, you can probably take it and and atomize it out for half a year easily. And also because despite the fact that I work in content marketing and I love content, we put out quarterly reports about the economic outlook. I don't really believe that a lot of people read the full length content. And so to me, it's a shame to have a 30-pager or whatever length it is, a long multiple page PDF document that everybody's worked so hard on, that every word is has been reviewed and pored over in some cases, and to not have people access that. I think the investment team at Picton Mahoney, these are such smart guys. I've had the opportunity to interview all of them, all the heads of each of the groups. And I will always walk away from those interviews with this feeling like, wow, I really want to get more of what they said out into the marketplace, because they inspire confidence in me, and I'm sure they would do so for others, for advisors or the end investor. So I think it's a shame to leave so much stuff on the cutting room floor. If you've already gone to the work of producing a big report, you want to make sure that those little nuggets go out to whatever channels are appropriate in smaller bite-sized chunks.
Great words from Luba, and I agree that you can create content for half a year or longer from a great piece of research and a research report. So I hope you found this episode really useful and you're inspired to consider what next with the original research you create and how much content you'll have from it. Okay, so thank you so much for listening today. And if you'd like any help with your content, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. We can help you with all of this repurposing of your research reports, or perhaps you want help with webinars, podcasts, blog posts, you name it. If you create content, then we can help you get the maximum value from that content. So just go to content10x.com/inquiry and we'd love to speak with you. Okay, all that's left to say is thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.